Okay, it looks like we are up and running and everything is looking good to go. Welcome everyone in the YouTube universe. Thank you for tuning in with Smokey Saint this evening. This is actually a nice special show. This is a treat for me. This is actually something that I've been wanting to do on my channel for quite some time. And I haven't really found too many takers or contenders, but we have two wonderful, kind, competent, intelligent young gentlemen that are with us today to discuss an argument that Nicholas has been formulating, and Snake was right, would like to discuss with him and give his opinion on it. So I'm joined today, of course, by Snake was right. Hello, sir. How are you today?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, we are doing great. We are doing great. Please feel free to introduce yourself a little bit to the YouTube audience we have here. Let us know about your channel, what you do, and just feel free to introduce.
Sure. Looks like the chat is kind of the usual suspects. But for anyone who doesn't know, I've had a focus on like theology and creationism for a while now. But I'm trying to branch out. I started off doing kind of more random stuff. I started off debunking claims about swords. I'm working on a video about Black Lives Matter right now. Things like that. And trying to move a little bit towards politics. I don't want to abandon theology or anything because that is one of my favorite subjects. Yeah, I just have a broad range of interests, but I like to focus kind of on skepticism and stuff like that.
Beautiful. Do you feel you're kind of a little bit more philosophically geared in your approaches to things? Is that kind of your focus?
I suppose so, and
Okay.
but also scientifically geared.
Okay,
Well.
beautiful. Well, then we might have a lot in common moving forward in the
Yeah.
future. But by the way, everyone, I do want to establish this and just say it. Nicholas, apologize, but I do want to say this. I have respect for Snake, ladies and gentlemen. Me and Snake had a little bit of a rough start, I think, at the beginning in terms of some of our comments. But you know what? I think we've kind of cleared the air a little bit, and I do want to let everyone in my channel know this: that Snake does have Smokey's respect. And I would like to move forward with positive, interesting, profitable engagements with him in the near future. So I just want to establish that. I do think Snake is actually looking for truth. We have a lot of atheists out there that don't care, and they just want to find ways to validate what they already know and what they already think. I don't actually think Snake is one of those people. So Snake, you are welcome on my channel, sir, and you are welcome on my channel anytime, and I look forward to profitable future engagements with you in the future, sir.
Well, thanks. Back at you.
Beautiful.
I think it's always good to assume people are legitimate. Sometimes you'll run into people who are just, they're just trolling you or something like that.
Indeed. I do try to give them the benefit of the doubt most of the time.
Well, that's why it's hard in comments. It really is, because you just want to cut to the chase. But that's why I like these live discussions.
Me too. And I'm really, really glad that you were really kind enough and bold enough, certainly, to come into a room, the den of theists, to come and pose your arguments. So you have my respect, sir. Thank you for that. Okay, and we also have with us, naturally, Mr. Nicholas, sir. Thank you so much for joining us as well. Would you please like to give us a little introduction of yourself and your channel? And by the way, everyone, just to remind you, all these gentlemen's information is linked in the description below. So if you like anything they say or that you hear, please go show them some love and subscribe. Nicholas, sir, the mic is yours. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Nicholas, and I'm a proclaimer of Messiah. And my channel is just a small budding channel so far. So I'm editing a demonstration I did of how I study scripture. And I'll be live streaming some of my translation work so that people can sort of judge me on that. And maybe I can leverage that into something. And a lot of theology, ministry, teaching, spiritual application, a lot of that kind of stuff will be up on my channel.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, that's about it.
Beautiful, excellent. Well, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, please go and give some love to our wonderful conversationalists today. Well, we're going to get cracking to it then. What we have here, Nicholas has prepared a little argument that he would like to present both to Snake and the audience. I'm basically not a contributor. I'm just here to moderate and observe and enjoy. So, unless anything gets out of hand, I don't expect it will. I've seen both of you gentlemen debate. I know you're both respectful and very, very keen, intelligent interlocutors, so I don't expect I'll have to do much. So, Nicholas, if you're prepared, sir, I'll go ahead and share your screen and give you a few minutes to open us up.
Okay, I'll just jump right into it when you let me know I'm on screen.
Okay, perfect. And your screen is shared, sir. You can feel free to begin at your leisure.
Okay, now I'm just gonna breeze right through this opening part. It's introduction.
Sure, and take your time. Take your time too. And at any point, Snake, please feel free. At any point that seems unclear, let's get clarity. If it needs to be done, go ahead and stop him and let's get clarification. You fine with that, Nicholas?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Let's proceed.
Is the God of Christ likely? I requested we name the debate, Is the God of Christ likely? Using the word likely and not probable, because by strictest standard, probable corresponds with quantitative contrast, as in probabilities, and likely corresponds with qualitative comparison, as in similarities. However, I will be using our experienced universe as a reference for what is to be likened to in terms of what is likely based on evidence. And I will be arguing quantitative maximals in favor of probability, also supporting my argument. Note the word Messiah is the anglicized version of Hebrew Meshach, and is Christ from Greek Christos, all meaning one who is anointed. To assess the likelihood of the God of Messiah, we should do so step by step in good order. Where I will begin to argue will be from absolute skepticism. It's absolute skepticism which Messiah gave me, by which he, might be a typo here, by which he made me escape the deception of the enemy. Absolute skepticism freed me from the trappings of ad populum and appeal to authority, which I had in time past been bound to unto fallaciously held presuppositions. Both ad populum and appeal to authority are appeals to the cultures and beliefs of others. Let me begin by asking, what is, according to a purely objective and skeptical perspective, what is the most likely source of existence? About 4 to 5 years ago, after months of sporadic meditative contemplation on that matter, I came to this conclusion. The answer is ultimate purpose. I will briefly outline the framework which argues the validity of my culture and beliefs. I have 2 arguments I will present to begin, though I have many more. So I'd like to meet again to further argue that Messiah is the Lord of glory, Son of God, and Son of Man who goes and comes through the clouds of the skies. And Jesus, Yeshua, Yah is salvation. He is even Jehovah, which name he inherits of his Father. And I would like to meet yet again to discuss the rightfulness of Jehovah's Torah. So here is argument 1. A summary of the ongoing debate. Point 1. I define my belief and culture to you. Point 2. My belief and culture is truth. Point 3. If my belief and culture is truth, then the God of Messiah is. I declare the God of Messiah is. I declare the kingdom, authority, and supremacy of Yeshua, known as Jesus, known as Jesus, unique Son of God. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of his kingdom. That's my long-term argument that if you get to know me and why I find my beliefs worthy of absolute conviction, that hopefully you may also be carried away by the Spirit of truth in the good news that Messiah is Lord. When truth flows freely through the mind, then one will see what potential one's mind truly has. And of course, in the eternal purpose to come, our minds will go far beyond, but even now, that Spirit desires to gust through you in Messiah's name, Yeshua Yehovah. This is a fair argument that if my culture is truth, the God of Messiah is, and here's why it's fair. The argument is nullified as much as I don't truly and fully define my culture and belief to you. The less I define it, the weaker my argument. Also, if my belief and culture are not fully truth, to whatever extent they are not truth, the weaker my argument. Even if I perfectly define exactly my culture and belief, and all of it is exactly truth, still, the less that correlates with the factuality of that God, which is specifically of Messiah, then the weaker my argument is. I testify as truth. 1. I define my belief and culture to you. 2. My belief and culture is truth. 3. If my belief and culture is truth, then the God of Messiah is. The position I've prepared to debate is this. The God of Messiah is likely. I take the affirmative. That was argument 1, which summarizes the long-term argument. So,
Okay.
is everyone still there?
Is it? Yeah. Is that the conclusion there for you?
Well,
I'm sorry. Is that the end? Is that
conclusion.
the end of the opening? I guess I should say.
I wanted to get a break if there was anything to discuss so far, but now I
Snake,
go into the
did you
logical argument.
Did you want to chime in, or do you kind of want to let him proceed? Do you want to kind of take what's been unpacked so far, or do you want to just let him get through the end of it?
I mean, it seems like he's just kind of outlining what he wants to argue so far. So
Right. So
I don't have a problem.
it's up to you. It's up to you how you'd like to proceed. If you want to continue, or kind of want to tackle what's there
Okay,
so far. I'll
it
leave
sounds
that
like
to
I
you.
should go on. I'll
Yeah, go
continue
ahead.
on.
Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I even wanted to take a moment to make sure I was being heard and stuff, that I wasn't just
Yeah.
cut
No, you're
off,
fine.
'cause-
Yeah. No, I think everyone's here. But guys, if you're not hearing in chat, let us know. But yeah, from what I can tell, you're doing fine. Everyone's hearing you. You're good.
Okay. So this is going to shift gears pretty heavily now. I should have my text back on screen again.
Oh, your screen went away. Your screen went away. Yeah, bring your screen back up.
Okay. There.
Okay, I see it. There we go. Okay, yep, you're good.
I have shared some culture and belief with you so far. Now let me share a little more. I testify to the best of my ability and awareness in perfect honesty before Yehovah, Messiah, my Lord, that the following proof is fact. 1. Yehovah is the God of Messiah. 2. Yehovah is. 3. The God of Messiah is. First, I will argue point 2. Yehovah is. As per argument, I have a few tricks to take an objective case and focus it on Yehovah. The tricks are my definition of harmony, definition of purpose, connotation of the word Yehovah, imposing use of the label Yehovah. As telling you about my beliefs and about my culture, these are not tricks, rather our honesty. Our Lord and his people invite you to share belief and culture with us. Our beliefs and culture are one for us. This definition of harmony, for us, this definition of harmony is true. This definition of purpose is true. The connotation of the word Yehovah is true. Imposing use of the name Yehovah is accurate. We have more definitions of these words, of course, all of which are true. We don't all use the same words or confirm the same details, but we all trust the same Yehovah and his one-of-a-kind supreme Son. These are my definitions in my argument that Yehovah is. Definition: realm, a closed system of coexistive harmony. Definition: universe, the realm of all possible realms. Definition: Yehovah, who existed, exists, and is to exist. The source of the universe, if the universe possesses the maximal vastness of harmony and possesses the maximal vastness of purpose. Now, in my culture, we use the name Yehovah, and we understand it to be the name of the source of existence. And we understand that Yehovah is the source of his own existence. Yehovah is also the fact that there is factuality. You'll notice I first went with the Hebrew meaning, the combining of three pronouns, meaning who was, who is, and who is to be. Then I shared a belief of my culture about maximal harmony and maximal purpose. I admit that the use of the words harmony, purpose, and Yehovah are subjective, intuitive points in this argument. Vocabulary is subjective, yet the reality which vocab labels is not contingent on the vocab. The questions I cannot prove with vocab, which you must judge intuitively for yourself, are if I am able, or are if I am using vocab correctly to correctly describe reality, and if, in that case, if it is likely that the God of Messiah is. So I don't know if you want to stop back and review any of these definitions at all. I'm about to go into the 12 points of evidence.
Did you define harmony yet?
Harmony, I
purpose?
don't think I defined yet. Yeah, the definition of harmony comes up when I, in point 2, harmony exists.
Okay. Keep
So,
going then, I guess.
I didn't
Okay.
define purpose yet either. Purpose I will also define in one of the points later. So I've defined realm, universe, and Yehovah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we're on the same page then.
Okay.
1, some things exist. A, you experience, so you are an experiencer thing. B, some of what you experience are a thing or things other than the experiencer thing which you are. C, there are at least 2 things. 1, some things exist. Does that seem agreeable enough that some things exist?
Yes. Sure, yeah.
Okay, so here is what?
Yeah, that works.
Here is harmony exists. If a thing is eliminated by something else, then first said thing no longer exists. Some things do not eliminate some other things. C, to not eliminate some other things can be simultaneously reciprocal. D, I will label that reciprocation as harmony. E, if any things exist, then harmony exists. So point 2 is harmony exists.
Okay, so
So how do you...
harmony doesn't exist where a thing eliminates another thing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, harmony in this proof is the reciprocation of not eliminating, of not doing the action of eliminating.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
3. All possible realms exist. A. If a realm never has. Yeah, if a realm never has. Oh, I just put the word never in there twice. Like
Yeah,
if a
no,
realm
I see it. If a realm never
never
existed.
has existed,
Yeah, okay.
if a realm never has existed and never shall exist, it is impossible for that realm to exist. B. All possible realms have existed and or shall exist. C. From a trans-temporal perspective, all possible realms exist. 3. All possible realms exist.
Okay.
4. The universe exists. A. If there are multiple possible realms, then they are in harmony with one another, so there is a realm of all realms, which is the universe. 4. The universe exists. So I don't know if you want to discuss the realm of all realms or anything.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
We can go
5.
on 5.
There is only one universe. A. There is only one universe. The universe may be multiversal, yet remains one. 5. There is only one universe. And this one, to clarify, works more as a definition, I think, almost, or at least it's tautological, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Uh, we can work with that definition.
6. Harmony is the power to exist. A. The measure of harmony is best described as quantitative measure of power to exist. B. It is likely that greater harmony results in patterns which then serve to simplify a system. So that quantitative measure of power to exist cannot be measured via measuring how much computational processing power is required to describe the details of the system. So that is to say that the amount of power to exist is not directly correlated to what's to a greater amount being required to process it, but rather anything that gives it more likelihood or certainty to exist would go into power to exist. And since harmony is when things don't eliminate each other, the more you have things not eliminating each other. So that's the correlation at 6. Harmony is the power to exist.
So is the measure of harmony is exactly equivalent to how much power to exist there is?
Yeah, this is a descriptive attempt, I would say. Whereas B is just to specify why measuring the required computational power is not the right answer. A is what states my claim as to what is the right answer, and that is that the measure of harmony is best described as quantitative measure of power to exist.
So the
So
more,
that's
the more, or should I say, the less a system kind of eliminates parts of itself or interferes with itself, the more power to exist it has?
yeah, and then I would also say increase in quantity as well, so that if it goes for greater space or greater time or maybe greater into realms of abstraction is even a possibility. But it
Okay.
would both be non-interference would fall into it, but also how much of it there is, how vast it is also a key point.
Well, this is kind of interesting because it's reminding me a little bit of a concept that I use. Would you say it makes sense to say when you said there's a higher quantity? It reminded me of when I say there's a greater degree of freedom. So like there's more moving parts, so to speak, that can coexist.
Yeah, that sounds. I think by moving parts you mean sort of like systematic relationship of some kind, as opposed to strictly physical.
Um, Both, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds like it's along the same lines as what I'm saying here.
Okay, I think I understand then.
And that's why one of the parts of the opening is like I'm sharing my culture because I may not be able to prove that I'm using the best vocab here, but at least like you can get to know our people, and someday when you see how truthful all of this is, then maybe you'll be right there to come on over to our side and join us in the kingdom. So 7 is purpose exists. So let's see if this is where I define purpose. A, purpose is the quality that a system of harmony will reach a greater measure of harmony. I might have underexplained that, but we'll work with it. B, it is possible for purpose to exist. C, all possible realms exist. 7, purpose exists.
Okay. Purpose is the quality of the system of harmony will reach a greater measure of harmony.
Yeah, for the purpose of this argument.
So it's just the ability to increase the harmony.
It's the quality that it will get there. So that through dynamics, a greater harmony will be reached. So then purpose could say after purpose is filled, there could be no purpose left in theory. But if we're talking about all possible realms, then the one with the most possible purpose is never going to run out of purpose.
Okay, so it's not just the ability to increase the harmony, it's kind of a determined factor that it will increase.
Yeah, from a trans-temporal perspective, I guess we're going with trans-temporal all being accounted for in the eternal. And whether or not these more concrete uses of these words like harmony and purpose have any implication to a more abstract or spiritual quality of the word, that would be part of how we would argue about if this argument really has strength or if it only looks like it has strength. So I'm aware of the subjective points, and
yeah, I mean,
I stand behind them.
There might be some confusion if we wanted to use like the colloquial usage of purpose. That might come up, but yeah, I think I understand how you're using it here.
And then 8, the maximal harmony exists. A maximal harmony has maximal. Oh no, I did put is. Okay, that's a good word. Maximal harmony is maximal power to exist. 8, the maximal harmony exists. So yeah, because it has more power to exist than anything less, it must exist. Is basically the argument here. Pretty simple.
Yeah, you're just saying whatever the maximum is, that's what it is. Okay.
And then 9, the maximal purpose exists. A, all possible realms exist. B, the greater the maximal purpose, the greater the maximal power to exist, the more likely the existence thereof. C, the likelihood of the existence of maximal purpose is maximally likely. And that's not a play on words. So 9, the maximal purpose exists. And I have a summary of the 9 points I've laid out so far. I think I have a total of 11, not 12. So the summary of the first 9 points. Some things exist. Harmony exists. All possible multiverses exist. The universe exists. There is only one universe. Harmony is the power to exist. Purpose exists. Maximal harmony exists. The maximal purpose exists. And I have 2 more points that just kind of drive home point 9. So I don't know if you want to open it up now or if I should finish this real quick.
Let's see. I'm just trying to find the original definition. So you're equating harmony with the power to exist, right?
Yes, harmony had been defined as the reciprocation of not eliminating, of when one thing reciprocates, not eliminating another thing out of existence, and they reciprocate one another. So that reciprocation of non-elimination is harmony. So I'm equating that with power to exist. Yes.
Okay. I guess I understand it a little better as like maybe room to exist, or like the ability to not be eliminated, kind of.
Well, gentlemen, could I just propose and maybe just a quick little segue to maybe snap a little bit of extra clarification into this? We're not talking about the non-existence or existence of matter or anything in violation of the second law of thermodynamics, right? Nothing can be eliminated; everything just kind of changes form, type thing. Is that kind of factored in, Nicholas?
I think that does factor in as a physical expression of things not eliminating each other from existing. But then there's abstract. There has to be abstract cohesion between all things in the universe also. So it's nowhere near limited to the physical.
Okay, just looking for a little clarification there. Please proceed.
Yeah, the word things is about the loosest that a word could possibly be. Anything. So that doesn't have to be a physical thing.
Okay. Snake, do you have any thoughts?
Then,
or do you want him just to continue?
I think he can continue.
Okay, beautiful.
I think I'm with him
Go
so
ahead.
far.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Nicholas.
Okay. So 10. 1 is victorious. A. It is possible for one proposition of possible existence to be the maximal of purpose, and so to have and be the one supreme power to exist. This would surely be the fact of all factuality. B. The maximal possible transtemporal measure of purpose of a system is of greater maximum if the dynamics of maximal purpose synergize through the universe of maximal possible harmony. C. the maximal possible is maximal enough to not be supplemented or added to by any other proposed possibilities of existence. 10. One is victorious. And 11, Jehovah is. Oh, do you want to stop at
Did
10?
you want to say something, Snake?
What is the one? The fact of all factuality?
Okay, in A, it is possible for one proposition of possible existence to be the maximal of purpose. So that that proposition of potential existence itself is the maximal of purpose. That is possible. And so to have and B, the one supreme power to exist, because it's going from harmony to greater harmony to greater harmony to the maximal extent. And it's in the next one that we specify that that process happens to the greatest maximal harmony. So I guess this is a lot of long-windedness to bring a oneness to a greatest to say a greatest maximal is going to mean that there's one, mostly based on point C. I don't know if I made points A and B too hard to understand. I just got through this earlier today.
So how would we know that one proposition for possible existence would be the maximal of purpose? Because wouldn't that need to include everything under it?
Everything that's possible, and what is possible by the definition I gave earlier is possible because it either has been or will be. So
okay, I assume you're
now
gonna
we're
get to that proposition.
Which proposition of possible existence?
Yeah, that could be the maximal of purpose.
Yeah, the purpose of this specific step is to argue that maximal is going to be 1 because of point C here, where I say the maximal possible is maximal enough to not be supplemented or added to by any other proposed possibilities of existence. Therefore, 1 is victorious.
Okay.
And then 11 is Jehovah is. A, the maximal harmony and maximal purpose are possibly most maximal if they are the maximally intelligent, maximally intuitive, transcendent, maximally factual, abstractly disembodied, beyond mental, beyond physical, beyond personal, fact of fact. B, the maximally likely source of the universe is that entity with maximal harmony and maximal purpose. Jehovah is.
Could you go back for a second?
Back to 10.
Yeah, what do you mean by is possibly most maximal? Are you saying that there might be something more maximally harmonious or
no,
purposeful than that?
That is meant to reference all possible realms. So since it's possible and all possible realms exist, including all possible realms of realms, then the argument would be, is that one possible where I'm claiming that there's only one, so I'm claiming all the other ones are not possible. So that might be the weakness of this argument, one could say.
And then all the other possible sources are not possible, you're saying?
All the other possible sources are not possible. Yes, because when I go to one is victorious, it is the proposition. And the proposition, using that word proposition specifically refers to the source of the potential. And if the potential is actualized, it's an actual source. So a proposed potential possibility.
Um,
Can
and
I
then
ask
how?
a quick? I'm so sorry, gentlemen. Can I just ask just a quick question to kind of snap? Because I'm getting a little confused myself. Just to try and clarify here, Nicholas. I just want to is the idea that potential is in some way actualized, but can you try to clarify that a little bit? I think I'm a little confused. Maybe some of the audience might be. Can you maybe wrap that around a little bit?
Okay, yes. In this case, the proposition, I am arguing that only the one maximal proposition is actualized because it is maximal enough to not be supplemented or added to by any other propositions.
So the
Here.
proposition is that the maximal is what's actualized. Is that kind of where you're going with it? Just so I know. Like the
Yes,
proposition is
when
that the maximal is what's actualized.
yes, and that's
Okay.
this specific one here with capitalized letters where I name the proposition. That's why it's
Okay.
capitalized
Okay.
maximal of purpose.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, sorry. Apologies. Please proceed, gentlemen.
No, you're good. Thank you. And that's both maximal of purpose here is both a descriptor and a descriptor of quality, but also a name for this specific proposition that I am claiming is possible.
And then how do you determine that one source is more likely than the other? I guess is what I'm wondering.
Well, I'm arguing that. So this is a lot like I don't know which argument it is. I guess it's one of the cosmological arguments. And I didn't mean for it to be like that, but I guess it is, where it's arguing that by maximalness we have this singular maximum entity, and then a lot of it would come to intuition. And so what is our intuition if this word, here I'll go back to my list of them, if this word harmony, if I have used that in a way where if we talk about, well, whatever has the most harmony has the most power to exist, does our intuition agree that this rings true? Or where I use these definitions of harmony and purpose, which seem to be on a fundamental level, which we could example with physical fundaments, but this is the fundamental of all things. So these harmony and purpose are defined on a fundamental level, and then I've used them to define Yehovah, who is a reference from the Hebrew scriptures. So it seems to me that a lot of the question is if one does object to any of the objective logic on one hand, and on the other hand, does one object to my implication that these are Yehovah? And that is, yeah, so then I think that's kind of what it comes down to. I've tried to sort of corner the argument there.
So I'm just wondering how you determine like which one is more likely, since there might be. Since you've described basically Yehovah, but which could possibly be the maximal purpose, but what if the actual maximal purpose does not have all those traits, And what if the maximal purpose is the result of uh, a less maximal purpose, like it's the result of lesser harmonious systems interacting with each other and becoming more complex as they interact versus where it has the most potential in its most fundamental form, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, the idea is that with all possible, and this description might get into more detail of what Smokey asked about potentials, that with all possible, then the maximal possible does not need to be supplemented. And let me see where else it sort of goes along the same point. Um, where all of these qualities, and I did a similar thing with maximal purpose. And the idea is that any of these qualities, if you take them, if it's not included, then you say you have an equation, and then you put one of these in, you add a multiplier to the same equation, no matter what, it always gets larger per multiplier. So I don't know exactly how carefully I chose every single one of these points, but I guess my point would be to argue that none of these would lessen the possibility, and they would all increase the maximal. So all of these traits will be there, plus other traits that I never thought of.
Um,
This list here.
so are you assigning the potential to result in a maximal purpose, like later on down the line with that first fundamental cause? Like, is
Oh
that
yeah, then if the starting place starts larger and is being multiplied by the same multipliers, the larger start is also larger, which coincides with this not needing to be supplemented, so there's only one. But
um? So so I guess I don't know. It makes sense if you're gonna say that the source of the universe has the maximal purpose, but if you're saying that it has the maximal harmony, then that sounds like the purpose has already been achieved, and that you're kind of equating. I don't know if I want to use these words, but like the end with the beginning, like if God, in the beginning there's only God, and in the end there's God, like whatever the kingdom of heaven, what God's purpose fulfilled. Wouldn't the end have more harmony than the beginning?
yes,
Or
and the whole thing with purpose being possible and bringing increased harmony. So the greatest level of purpose is never going to run out of increases, because as soon as we say it runs out of increase, there's the possibility of one that did the exact same thing but did not run out of increase. And then because it's the exact same but with more, that's more power to exist. And yeah, so establishing power to exist in this way may be
so that sounds like infinite power to exist.
yes, and then the largest infinite would be the one that would win such a that would have the maximal to be that one that is not supplemented.
Um, hmm. Well, I'm not like a huge math guy. I know there's I know there's some concepts that's like there's bigger and smaller infinities. Uh, is that
Yeah, in this
something you're
case,
talking about?
I would discuss in direct comparison And then if one continues farther, or say you have infinite length, but the one that's wider is always going to be more quality or more quantity of, of total volume, even though they're the same length. So, yeah, you can have infinities compounded onto infinities, and you get into what are comparatively different sized infinities. This would be the maximal infinity of purpose. And then that would go into a spiritual discussion of like, well, what can purpose be in terms of, say, Yehovah and what the Hebrew scriptures say about him, and Messiah and the example that he brought. So that's why I said this is the first step in sharing my culture, is just like, if we look at our Yehovah from an objective viewpoint, he makes perfect sense and is perfectly likely. And so that really takes a major defeater away, that people are like, well, we start from atheism as a starting point, and then you're going to need a good reason for theism. And it's like, what I've tried to show here is that the way we understand reality, it just makes more sense to start with an understanding that maximal harmony, maximal purpose, maximal existability, maximum power to exist. That's where things start. That's the most likely. So from there, I mean, what do we have to assess who or what that is? So that it's not a silly proposition from the ground up, but actually it's the more reasonable proposition from the ground up. And then um, atheism seems to be trying to describe reality in a way that is not maximally existtive, in order to avoid stumbling across this one entity, this fact of fact, the fact that there is fact, the being of being.
Well, I think I'm actually with you on that because the maximally, whatever the maximal existence is just what is maximally possible, but the maximum might have some limit. So I guess where I'm feel like I'm losing you a little bit is when you're saying that it's like the infinite, because it's kind of like when there's this criticism of like, well, how can you be omnipotent if you can't create a rock that you can't lift, something like that. And it's just maximally powerful. It's not. It's just the amount of possible things is true, and I
Well,
don't
here's
think
the beautiful. Oh,
atheism
sorry.
is incompatible with that because the maximum might just be a godless universe.
Yeah, and I would certainly argue against that, and I would say that the most likely, that's where the next direction I go is to lean on Messiah and who he is, to argue. Um, I think it might be.
Well, yeah, let's move on then. See where it's going.
Okay, well, that's yeah, I have sufficiently argued that Jehovah is. Therefore, I have provided some compelling foundational evidence that the God of Messiah is likely. Messiah said, God is a spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. We have intuitions. We base our philosophical foundations on intuitions. We experience experiences intuitively. The foundation of I think, therefore I am is to grant an intuition as self evident fact. My intuition informs my philosophy, and as we philosophize deeper than mathematical reasoning, we get into logical reasoning, but deeper still is intuitive reasoning. I have done my best to bridge the gap between logic and intuition, yet to hold and express all things in truth.
Okay,
Okay, so my second point.
I think where I'm seeing a gap is I think you've defined Jehovah as some maximal purpose that is maximally intelligent, maximally intuitive, transcendent, maximally factual, etc., etc. All those things you labeled, but I'm not seeing where you actually showed that that possible maximal purpose is in fact the maximal purpose that is actually existing.
So we're not talking about the correlation between scripture. We're talking about the correlation between our experienced universe. Am I understanding that right?
Um. Well, yeah, I
I've
think
shown
we're
no
just.
evidence
I think
that
we're just talking about like a kind of a general deistic god at this point, or not necessarily a Christian god, but some sort of personal, intelligent god. But I'm not seeing. I understand the definition of Jehovah, but I'm not seeing where you show that that is the actual maximal that does exist in reality.
Okay, well, our reality would have been put out of existence by the maximal one if our reality was not the maximal one. So our reality has to be the maximal one in order to
Are you there? Did I lose both you guys?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought
Nicholas,
I
are you
dropped
still
for a sec.
there? Did you? Yeah. No. Nicholas, did you drop out? No, oh, he might have dropped out.
Yeah, I thought it was me. It's usually me.
No. Yeah. No. I think he might have dropped out for a minute. In fact, I had just mentioned in chat. I actually thought you were making a pretty valid point, Snake, just in terms of your presupposition. The argument based upon a presuppositional level. Looking at it and saying the basis of the argument, the presupposition, does need its own kind of logical basis. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah, it seems like he's saying that Jehovah is the maximal purpose.
Right.
And then
And then he just
I would
builds off
agree.
that, and you're kind of looking for the presupposition for that, or you're looking for the argument for the presupposition, kind of, right?
Yeah, because I would agree
Okay.
that there has to be some kind of maximal purpose under this definition, and
Okay.
that this concept might be conceptually a maximal purpose over other concepts, but I'm not seeing where he's arguing that this concept actually exists as that maximal.
And I think I'm actually on the same page with you there. So I
Okay.
hope he comes back and we can get a little more clarity, because I actually think you're very logically valid on that.
Cool.
So yeah, no, I we could almost probably have our own conversation at some point, Snake, on how we probably both think that the presuppositional apologetics world is just kind of a bit of a dumpster fire right now. you know, we might we might be able to find some common threads in that.
Yeah, we can definitely bond over that because
Okay, good. Well, look, well, maybe we'll get together and do a little Darth Dawkins roast or something.
oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay, we'll look forward to that. Oh,
Nice.
I hope Nick comes back. I think maybe he lost internet or something.
Yeah, that happens to me. If I'm not connected to the Ethernet on Streamlabs, I just drop.
Right. What part of California are you in, actually, by the way?
I'm in Colorado.
Oh, I thought you were in Cali.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think I might have accidentally typed Pacific time,
okay.
but I just
Okay.
use
Yeah.
Eastern time because it seems like everyone else does that.
Right. No, same here. In fact, every time I write emails, I always say, "Hey, tell me time zone, because if I assume we're gonna make a mess." Oh, okay. He's back. He's back. Okay, let's get him
Sweet.
back in here. All right. Welcome back, Nicholas. You okay there, sir?
yeah, it looks like it was my internet. At first it looked like it wasn't. But
Okay,
I guess
great.
it
Well,
was.
if you do want to put your screen back up, I will get it back up there for you and let you guys proceed there. Did you hear what me and Snake had said, by the way, Nicholas? Just to kind of give you perspective,
No.
I wanted to kind of snap it into place where Snake was kind of coming from, just based upon my view as well. Did you hear it?
Nope, I didn't hear
Well,
anything yet.
I'll let Snake repeat and let you guys just continue your conversation. I'm not trying to get into it, so you guys go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, and Smokey, if you wanted to kind of summarize it too, that might be helpful. But
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, what I was saying is, at least this is the way that I'm kind of seeing the argument in its structural format, is that you have a presuppositional argument that's primarily abductive. And that's fine. It's still logically valid and certainly can be sound. But what I was mentioning to Snake and what I think Snake was struggling with was trying to understand the logical reasoning for the core presupposition that you're using. And your kind of core presupposition is that the actualized reality, first of all, is Jehovah, and second of all, that we actually have the actualized reality in that which we're living in. Am I kind of getting that right, Snake?
yeah, like if Jehovah is that maximally potent concept, how do we know that in reality what our real maximal purpose is that concept that you presented?
I don't
'Cause-
quite follow the question.
Well, I think you said if the maximal purpose is intelligent, maximally intelligent, etc., etc. But I want to
let me go
know,
back
how
to
do
my
we know?
definition of Jehovah.
How do we know that that list is our traits of the actual maximal purpose?
The source of the universe. If the universe possesses the maximal vastness of harmony and possesses the maximal vastness of purpose. So then in my list, maximal harmony exists, the maximal purpose exists. So there you go. So
But I guess
Yeah.
the maximal doesn't necessarily have to be these things that you listed. Like if I'm saying that if the maximally large island exists, then therefore God, and so the most maximally large island exists, therefore God exists. But I'm not sure if that's the greatest example, but my point I'm trying to make is
there is
the
a difference here that
the maximal is just the biggest one that exists. So how do we know how big that is I guess is what I'm asking. How maximal is the actual maximal as compared to what we can imagine versus what is actual?
well, I don't think any of us is in any position to measure it all. But there is a big difference between a maximal island or what I'm doing here, because I have specifically addressed the power to exist in assessing what most likely exists. And so the maximal has to do with this harmony, this power to exist. And then the maximal has to do with purpose, which is harmony unto increasing harmony. So that it's like harmony plus in that sense. And so I put a lot of focus into what's the best way to assess likelihood of existence. Is a big difference between this and talking about a maximum sized island or something, because size is not power to exist.
Yeah, I'm just using that as kind of an analogy of the magnitude of the purpose.
Yeah, and then how do we know if this one is actually the maximum, or if this one's less than the maximum?
Yeah, like how do we know whether the island is, just the biggest island there is, or if this island like is the island from Lost that has like magical powers on it or something? I never finished Lost, so I don't know quite what the thing was, but like so we could imagine that the most maximal island would have time traveling abilities, the ability to move around, but we don't know if that is the most maximal island that actually exists in reality. But there is some maximal island. But so I don't understand how we know that, because I would agree that the maximal purpose exists, but how do we know that it has the traits of being intelligent or intuitive or transcendent? I guess I would agree that is factual, but not sure how we get to intelligent.
Okay. I would argue in support that if it were, say, we could measure it at 10,000, well, then when it's not maximally intelligent, hypothetically, if it has that 10,000 and maximal intelligence, then it can function more highly unto purpose. And we might even try to say that we could define maximally intelligent that way, simply because this is an intelligence beyond what human intelligence is. So it fundamentally is something else in a sense. And so for me, maximally intelligent wouldn't really be an arguable point, because we could almost define it to have to be there. But then the arguable point is if concepts of religious and moral purpose have any abstract correlation with fundamental purpose. If we're to say fundamental purpose is the definition I've used in this argument.
I guess where I'm have an issue, I guess I'll just try another analogy. Like, if we're saying so I would agree the most maximally purposeful human exists, for example. And then we go and say, well, potentially the most maximally purposeful human would be the Superman. Like, can fly, is indestructible, has laser beam eyes, and has an unshakable sense of justice. And then you're saying, so therefore the Superman exists because the most maximally purposeful human exists. But we have no idea whether
I use that as an argument.
Sorry?
I was going to say, I guess I could use that as an argument for Messiah, where we're arguing whether or not Messiah actually existed. I can just back out of the historical argument entirely and use this one.
But do you see the flaw there? Is because we don't. I assume
like
that you agree.
So
I assume that you agree
with
that
that
the Superman doesn't exist.
Well, that's the Son of God, Messiah. So I mean, you're expecting different characteristics because you're defining purpose differently. So if we get to the most fundamental purpose, we have spiritual purpose.
But so as
that's
long
where
as
I get to this quote: God is a spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and in truth. So we can intuitively know that fundamental purpose prioritizes spiritual and moral purpose above physical increase, as if physical increase were purpose.
So you're saying if we can find some more maximally purposeful being than Superman, then we can know that it exists? Just because it's more powerful or more purposeful? Like, is the most
I really
maximally
on Messiah is the thing, because I'm like, this argument for me sort of does seem to work for Messiah. Like, we could expect, then one could argue, like, well, then why not including other animals and stuff? And then the scriptures have all these answers. So, like, as sharing my culture and everything, as we dig deeper and deeper into this question of Yehovah, we have thousands of answers within our scriptures.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm trying to point out, how do we know the most maximally purposeful thing that we can imagine from the most maximally purposeful thing that actually exists? Like, we know that there is a maximally tall human, and I can imagine a 50-foot tall human, so that would be more maximally tall than the tallest human that we know of today. But that doesn't mean that a 50-foot human exists. In reality, it's, I don't know, what is he, like 9 feet tall?
Oh, maybe the definition of maximal I'm using is different, because these maximals are the greatest potential, or yeah, so not the greatest realized potential, but it's just the greatest potential. And then that's sort of the whole point of the argument, is that I'm saying that the one of most potential is the same one that's realized. Just say it in sort of layman terms, maybe.
Because I mean, I'm with you in imagining that this could be the most maximal thing that we can imagine of. But is it the
We're
most maximal thing
hypothesizing so
that is actual?
Yeah, and then my argument there is that whichever one, if there was more maximal possible, then that ends up being this one. So that's
Just
where
so if I can imagine a more maximal being than this definition of Jehovah, then that automatically exists.
let me see. The
reality?
likelihood of the existence of maximal purpose is maximally likely. So I think we're hooked on this step here, where I say it's maximally likely that maximal purpose exists. And then, well, hypothetical and imagined are not exactly the same, because we can hypothesize a Jehovah far beyond what we can imagine. And we can state in our hypothesis that it is beyond what we can imagine. But essentially, I can still follow what you're saying the same way, but that is a key distinction too. And then
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you bridge the gap between the hypothetical and the actual.
the actual is what the hypothetical, I'm claiming that this hypothetical, or that this case is the best objective case to go forth with based on what we witness in the actual. So the actual is already here, and then I'm using that to make this case.
So you're saying it's
that somewhere out in the actual there is a maximal of harmony and purpose, is the case I'm making, and that my people have called that harmony and purpose Yehovah, which is the source of itself and everything else.
Are you saying that the Yehovah is the best explanation of the hypothetical explanations?
Yeah, I'm saying Yehovah is the best explanation of what we do witness.
Just because it's hypothetically more purposeful?
Yeah, I guess that does have a lot to do with it. This the way I've defined Yehovah is the limit of what I have argued so far, and then arguing that Yehovah is the God of Messiah is another step. So this is bridging my definition of Yehovah so far, and showing that we start at a place that totally makes a lot of sense, and then we can dig deeper into who Messiah is from there. If we want to argue that the God, whether or not the God of Messiah is this Yehovah. But then I guess overall my question is just, based on this definition of Yehovah, is there a strong case here or not?
I think I'm with you up until your conclusion in number 11, whereas I actually accept that there is this fundamental, I don't know, some people call it the first cause, or the maximal harmony and purpose, which I would call the maximal degrees of freedom, or potential for degrees of freedom. Um, I think some atheists might not accept that, but like in my debate with Darth Dawkins, I was like, yep, there is a first cause. There is something that's fundamental that is underlying all of existence. So I'm with you up until the point where you're saying it seems like you're just leaping to, okay, now that that source is this hypothetical Jehovah, and so I'm still not seeing a connection between that definition of Jehovah and the actuality of it.
Okay, so I guess I sort of went out on a limb when I threw in all these other factors that describe further into the spiritual understanding that we have received down from the elders. And so if I had stuck with just the harmony and purpose part of it, then it sounds like, um, based on how I made my definitions, you find the argument pretty agreeable up to there.
Well, if you wanted to label the source Jehovah, I could maybe agree to that, but then I would have to contend with. I would have to question, these other traits that you listed. Like, is that Jehovah? Is that source intelligent at all? Let alone maximally intelligent, and et cetera, et cetera.
And
So
then what do you think of that? Why do you?
Did you have any points for that, like later on, or did we reach the end?
No, I don't have any more points about Jehovah. I have a brief list of how I would argue about Messiah. Um,
Gentlemen, may I possibly maybe pose a question from the audience? Because it is still on the topic where we were just at before you move forward, as opposed to saving it to the end. Do
oh,
you
yes,
guys mind?
please.
It is for Nick from Johans. He says, if I imagined a maximally great dragon, does that imply that it exists?
Um, if it's maximally likely to exist, then you would be on the same track. But when you go with the category of dragon, then the question is whether Jehovah allows the dragon to exist or not. And when we're at the most fundamental point, we no longer have something to just go above to trump. So then that's why the greatest maximal argument has some weight if you're talking about maximal potential to exist of all existing things.
Okay,
Well,
beautiful.
I
Proceed,
mean,
gentlemen.
couldn't you say that the maximum likelihood of some things is zero? Like the maximum likelihood that there's an elephant in my room right now is zero.
Yeah, so then is the maximal likelihood of this source of existence that I proposed zero? I mean,
Well, it seems like we don't know. Uh, I think like a hard atheist would say, yeah, there's zero. And I think the more attributes you assign to it, like I would say it's closer to zero. The more you assign, like if you start going into the Messiah, I would have more objections. But at this point, I'm just like, we just don't have any information. Like we have this hypothetical. Now what? Like he said, if I imagine a maximally great dragon, does that mean that the dragon exists because it's maximally great? I can imagine a maximally great purpose. Does it mean that that's the maximally great possible purpose? I guess is what I'm saying. Or is it just an idea that we have? Is it just like
yeah,
the
my argument.
maximally tall human as defined as the 50-foot human versus the actually existing maximally tall human?
Yeah, my argument's that if it's the maximum, um, the maximum possible power to exist, then that does exist. Because if whatever exists, if it's less than that maximum potential to exist, then that maximum potential to exist has to also exist.
Well, I can agree to that, but how do we know that that maximal potential to exist also has the traits of intelligence?
Oh yes, that I would appeal to the discretion of the judge. So each person would judge whether they agree about maximal intelligence, maximal intuition, transcendent. So that would mean it has all the advantages towards purpose that come with being sentient, as well as all the advantages that abstract facts can have. Is how I'm using that word transcendent here. Maximally factual. I think that one's a little bit hard to argue against. Abstractly disembodied. That gives it no limits for its maximalness. So I think that's a good trait. It's beyond mental. Yeah, that's a little hard to pin down, but I think intuitively that would be a pretty safe assumption. Beyond physical, that's along the lines of abstract disembodied. Beyond personal, so it's personal, but it's also far more than personal, far more than experienceable. And then fact of fact is what it is. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I would
those are
just
all a matter of
focus.
individuals to judge for themselves. Yeah.
I mean, I would just focus on the trait of intelligence first and foremost, or even awareness.
Okay, so where do you
But
think
if,
that that would not? Can we
well,
focus on how that relates to purpose? How if it increases the maximal harmony and maximal purpose or not? Since that's how it's framed into the argument. Because it seems like
sure.
whatever level of harmony and purpose you're getting without intelligence, it seems intuitively fair to presume that with intelligence you can take it to another level.
Um, yeah, but I'm not sure what you mean by someone can judge for themselves whether that exists. Like, do you have like a syllogistic reason why that intelligence must exist in the maximally actual purpose? Like, I would
No, this is where
agree.
I
I might agree if it has intelligence, then it might have a greater purpose. But we don't know if it does have intelligence at this point.
Gentlemen, and
well,
if I may, just real quick, then I think again we have another question from the audience that I think maybe is right along these lines here, and it is for Snake. Snake, this is from Jungle Jargon, and he's asking, what is Snake's position on what it is that is the cause of everything?
Um, as far as I can tell, I think it's. I mean, it's not complete. I don't claim to have all the answers, but there's something about non existence that is incoherent, and therefore something exists. So it's something like that.
Okay, very good. Please proceed, gentlemen.
okay. And that I find pretty agreeable. That sounds like a very intuitive way to describe a lot of what I was getting at here with words. And this is something I discovered intuitively originally. And I worded it in a completely different way a couple weeks ago. Then I think this is actually more to the point of why I decided that maximum purpose is the most likely source of existence. And then from there, that really made it extremely reasonable to have confidence in the direction of God instead of being a faith against reason. It was a faith supported by reason in that circumstance. But it was something I came to trying to see what I could work with from skepticism. So I guess that would sort of be my question is if this maximal potential to exist being what correlates with existing, that you are more powerful by definition, you are more powerful to exist, so you exist rather than that which is less powerful to exist. This sort of line of thinking, um, if there's a skeptical perspective from which I should not come to this conclusion, is sort of the question I would ask of my opponent. Like, yeah, aside from maybe arguing the detail of intelligence or a couple points that I'm not claiming I can prove, is there some other direction that objectivity should take us in? What are your thoughts?
Well, for me, the intelligence would be kind of the most important part there, because we agree that there has to be some kind of source for all this. And then if you could show that it was intelligent, then that would kind of tip me on the scale towards your side. But you said you couldn't prove it, right?
Yeah, I appealed to intuitions. We have intuitions. We base our philosophical foundations on intuitions. We experience experiences intuitively. The foundation of I think, therefore I am is to grant an intuition as self-evident fact. And so at that point, I'm appealing to intuition that you're getting a greater potential of purpose and harmony from something that has some form of intelligent arrangement, so has some form of intelligence guiding the yeah, and then I would say you get the maximum of those advantages from the maximal intelligence, and then it sounds a lot more impressive than some form of intelligence did. So I do think intelligence is a fair one, but I don't want to just keep belaboring the point. I do have to confess that that's the point where it gets into spirit and truth, intuition, and the fundamentals that underlie the argument that it has to stand on. It can't just be up its own, pulling on its own bootstraps. So therefore, that is, yeah, that's one of the points where the rubber hits the road, I guess I could say.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about
Is there any?
maybe the bootstrapping problem a little bit if you wanted, because it's hard to say if I have
Yeah,
an intuition either way, because I really try hard to suspend a lot of these judgments, or intuitive judgments, especially with these kind of questions. But the bootstrapping problem where, God needs to exist in order to create existence itself, that's kind of a problem for me. But what, or like, so if a purpose is the source of existence, then a purpose would have had to exist before existence exists. And so that all becomes very confusing, and that is kind of labeled one of the bootstrapping problems. And that's why I kind of lean away from it. But what would you say to someone whose intuition is that they're intuiting that there is no God?
Well, in terms of this argument, I would be asking where they object to the argument, or if it's specifically at this moment of connecting this maximal source to a God idea. or puts the name Jehovah on it. And I think what you were just addressing about the bootstrap problem is where a lot of this stuff comes in, of being disembodied, being beyond mental, beyond physical, beyond personal. You have transcendent. So yeah, these are addressing that observation that there's a bootstrapping problem, which I think increases, since we know the bootstrapping problem does exist, it increases the likelihood that it's fair to attempt to describe characteristics which address that, because the source of existence which must exist must somehow cope with the bootstrapping problem. In essence of when I say coping, I mean its fact of existence must cohere with that somehow, because both things do exist.
How could you explain how that kind of solves the bootstrapping problem?
Well, it means that what I'm proposing, since what I'm proposing has a bootstrapping problem and reality has a bootstrapping problem, that would mean that what I'm proposing coheres with reality, which is in favor of what I'm proposing, not against what I'm proposing.
So you're just saying these traits of transcendent adheres to reality, so therefore the bootstrapping problem is solved?
I didn't follow that. Sorry. The question.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow too. You said that
I'm
it
saying
conforms
that
to reality, so it kind of seems like begging the
it
question, because you're
coheres.
saying like it's true, therefore it's not a problem. But
Oh yeah, then
I don't know how we get to know that these traits, proposed traits of Jehovah, are in fact real traits that exist in the source.
yeah. So we are now circling back to where I admit that that's up to your own intuition. If your intuition is that maximal super intelligence is not going to increase the thrust of power to exist, if it's not going to increase that likelihood, then you can find this point disagreeable. I personally think it strengthens my argument to say it's maximally intelligent, because that fits with what would be in this maximal position. So if you think that that perhaps weakens the argument, I think we just disagree there, and we do so on intuitive grounds,
Yeah, I mean, if it's just
as far as I can
intuition, I
tell.
can't really do anything with that, because I would need like a logical reason, because I don't, like, I know that there are people who are going to intuit that there is a god. There are people who are going to intuit that there are no gods. There are people who might intuit that there are many gods, or some
Well,
different
we're
form
getting a
of
little carried
god,
away with
or
intuition, in that I said intuition on this intelligence detail. And so, and that does
okay.
apply to some other details, but I think when we start saying intuition to my whole argument, that's not really what my whole argument did. A
Well,
lot of
perhaps, I
my
mean,
argument, started from some things exist, for example.
perhaps someone intuits that this is some sort of a god, but that it's a blind idiot god who's just spitting out existence, but it doesn't really know what's going on. It's just a beast of some kind, almost.
Oh yeah, and I don't think that it's as reasonable to think that such a source of existence would occupy the prime role for which I have established in this argument. And so that prime role, I think, fits better with maximally intelligent. So while I can't directly say here is a logical proof against that, I can just cite that I think it's less reasonable. And I don't know why you think the opposite would be the more reasonable, or if,
Well,
you
if
know,
it's if
whether this is a
it's
matter of how reasonable it is or a matter of hard proof.
if it's just up to intuition, is there really a reason behind any of the conclusions? It's just kind of a gut feeling,
Um,
right?
well, we have intuition that we think there, I think therefore I am is grounded in an intuition. So when I say intuition, I don't mean that it's a matter of reflexes or instinct or something. I mean that it's not a logical proof, but it comes from a point of um, a direct observation, whether a direct observation of mind, a direct experience. So we experience that um, there's harmony and purpose that comes forth from minds. So I'm appealing to one's experience of that rather than finding a way to argue that, which I don't know if I can argue in any kind of proof sort of sense.
Are you talking about just some sort of justified belief? Like just enough justification to maybe tip the scale towards 51%?
I am talking about having an observation. So it is abductive reasoning that we have this observation of existence. And then what is the best explanation? So you could describe best explanation as majority. So let's say it wouldn't even have to be 50% if it was divided over more possibilities. But best explanation would be the best one to go with. And then if this is the best explanation, then I think that is evidence in favor that the God of Messiah is likely. And maybe I should read what else I have left as far as the arguments I'm not making today.
Yeah, and I would just
So my second
add
point.
real quick that I would accept the best explanation is a scientific one, which has the ability to make testable future novel predictions.
And then my only disagreement there is that the scientific descriptions have no level of being mutually exclusive with my philosophical description of fundaments. So we have fundaments of abstraction, like the fact that math exists and is the same, whether humans are smart enough to think of math or not. And so there are things more fundamental in existence and abstract existence than what science can aim on. And so that's the only place where I have disagreement is that we're not even, if we limit it to science, then we're just leaving the fundamental unaddressed. So this is what I think is the best way to address it.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be truths.
Made.
There's obviously going to be truths that we don't know about, or even maybe can't know about. But as far as what we're able to know or state with confidence, I think explanations need to be testable in some way. Like what you're saying may be true, but if you don't have a good way to demonstrate it, then we can't, from our perspective, know that truth.